Hi, and welcome back to Wake Up with Natalie Rose, the channel that helps you think less about food and your body and more about truly living. I'm really excited about this episode because I was really intentional about carving out time to think about what I wanted to share during this season of New Year's resolutions and preparing for the new year and 2025 highlight reels. I know that stepping into a new year can be stressful, at least for me it used to be. I remember this one year I realized it was going to be January 1st the next day, and I didn't have some extraordinary plan for how I was going to get better or be better. And I was so anxious that I binged an entire box of granola bars and felt unwell after. And since then, I have practiced being okay with not having some huge life-changing plan on December 31st. I've never really liked New Year's resolutions, especially when you set them and then they fail and then you feel like a failure. And I especially don't love the whole new year, new me idea. That being said, I do love a fresh start. Not in a change your entire life, your routine, your diet, and your whole schedule kind of way, but just in a much more grounded way, a refreshing, rejuvenating kind of way. Like, how can we use this moment to zoom out, look at the whole picture, reset, come back to what actually matters? What actually helps us feel more alive, more at ease, and more authentically ourselves? And if there's one thing, the most important thing that I could share with you to help you start off the new year strong, it's this. Connection matters more than control. In today's episode, I want to talk about why connection to yourself, your body, your emotions, and to other people might be the most powerful intention that you could carry into 2026, especially if you've spent years trying to manage food, manage your body, or manage your schedule into feeling perfect. We're going to explore how disconnection often sits underneath food and body obsession, how it shows up in subtle, everyday ways, and what reconnecting actually looks like in real life. Not perfectly, not all at once, but consistently enough that the obsession will fade away. The first thing I want to share is that disconnection is the root of all obsession. Looking back, I started fixating on my body when I was as young as 6 years old. My legs were never thin enough, my hair wasn't blonde, my eyes weren't blue, my arms were too chubby, my stomach was too pudgy. You could say it was because I was comparing myself to the Spice Girls who would flaunt their crop tops, or you could say it was because my mom wouldn't leave the house without makeup on or didn't feel comfortable having her photo taken. And it probably was those things, but it was also me feeling disconnected from others and feeling increasingly disconnected from my true self, trying to be what I thought was acceptable so that I could fit in. I've always been a slow to warm up kind of person, and it was always hard for me to make and keep friends. And in my household, even though I was privileged with loving, caring parents who treated me like I was their whole world, we didn't talk much about feelings growing up. And I believe that because I didn't have the emotional tools to cope with the feelings of shame, loneliness, and fear that I was grappling with, I learned to channel those feelings into my body. One, by viewing my body as the problem instead of my feelings, by viewing my body as ugly instead of recognizing that it was just that I was having ugly feelings, by trying to change my body as a way to change how I felt inside. This became a survival mechanism, a way that I coped throughout my life. Later in grade school, when I was joining a new class, I pretended to be like the popular girls and I ended up making friends. In high school, I lost a lot of weight for the first time and received a ton of validation for being thin. Throughout my early 20s, I was constantly looking to others to see what I could say, couldn't say, what I liked or disliked, how to be creative, how to dress, how to act, and how to eat and be healthy. I determined how I felt about myself based on how others treated me. And that was not very good because when you have a toxic relationship with yourself or you treat yourself poorly, you attract people who end up treating you poorly and you tolerate it because that's what you're accustomed to. And all those strategies got me immediate attention sometimes, but never allowed me to feel fully seen. And this is all about control because I subconsciously thought that if I could control what I eat and how I look, then I could feel good about myself, find love, be happy, etc. The underlying need is connection, but the strategy is flawed because it disconnects you from yourself and from real, genuine relationships, because what you're getting is surface level admiration for the parts that you changed about yourself that are not authentic to you. So you're not truly being seen or feeling seen for who you are. And now there's this pressure to maintain that external facade, which prevents you from feeling free and safe to be yourself. You're constantly on alert. And the more you focus externally, the more disconnected you become internally from your emotions and therefore your emotional needs, from your body's intuition, like hunger and fullness, cues to rest, and other important signals. And when you're disconnected from you and from what you need and what actually matters to you, you feel empty. And when we feel empty, our brain starts to obsess. It goes into overdrive, trying to figure out what the heck is wrong, because you have all these feelings, but you don't know how to access them because you're focusing on the wrong thing. For me, the obsession turned into healthy eating. How could I eat the healthiest? How could I rid my body of toxins? Those are in quotations. How could I put only the purest things in my body so that I would feel pure and have a better life? But all of that just caused more stress and dysregulation, more deprivation, more misery, and more disconnection. Because when you're following a super rigid, healthy diet and exercise regime, you're not really partaking in what everyone else is partaking in. It limits you. It restricts you from the way that you live and involve yourself in things. And I don't mean in the way that you have to binge drink just because everyone else is binge drinking. What I mean is that when you feel okay with yourself, when you're consistently responding to your body's signals and meeting your needs, you can go to a party and have the food and drink without overdoing it or having to restrict yourself entirely. You ironically have the self-control that you always wanted, except I don't call it self-control, it's intuition. That's what it is. It's following your intuition. When you're connected to yourself, your body, and your needs, you're connected to your intuition. And that's when the obsession starts to disappear, because intuition is self-trust. It's peace. All the daily struggles you have with food and your weight are all symptoms. They all stem from disconnection. The other week, a client asked me how to cope with seeing old photos of herself when she was thinner. And when we peeled back the layers of why those photos felt so uncomfortable for her, it all boiled down to how she felt about herself. Invisible, unworthy, boring, needing to appear a certain way or be perceived as healthy or disciplined or in control in order to deserve to take up space in a room. And to me, that means you're disconnected from your true self. None of us are boring. We're bored because we're disconnected from the things that light us up. And that often happens as a result of being disconnected from our feelings, not knowing the difference of what feels good and what feels bad, because you're so used to just doing the things that are expected of you, the things that you were taught would get you the acceptance or success or admiration that we all crave. Feeling boring or bored also happens from being so obsessed with food and exercise and micromanaging your body and physical appearance that there's no time or mental space left for curiosity, passion projects, creativity, or play, because you're stuck on that hamster wheel of lose weight. Okay, now I got to maintain. Okay, lose or maintain, lose or maintain. And as long as you're disconnected from yourself, which also means not accepting of yourself, not okay with you, your brain will obsess about something, even if it's not food or your physical appearance. If you're not accepting of your emotions, if you're not accepting of your needs, like, for example, needing to eat more than the person sitting beside you, needing to sleep more than your partner, needing to work less than your coworker, not being accepting of your limits, not accepting of your true desires. Getting to know yourself on a deeper level is part of healing. How do you do that? You explore, you experiment, you do things just for fun. You spend less time doing things that you feel like you should do to gain approval or for short-term gratification, and more time doing things for pure pleasure, curiosity, and rest. But all of that doesn't happen when you're living in fear, when you're living in fight or flight mode, when everything feels like a threat to your safety. That if you take half an hour away from your typical routine, that everything is going to fall apart. That means that you're dysregulated. There's an imbalance in your body, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. When we're in survival mode, we're just trying to get the next quick fix of dopamine or validation. But by doing the opposite of that, being playful, spending time exploring being yourself, just being with your thoughts and feelings, making space for yourself, making space for play and rest. All of those things ground you. They take you out of that fight or flight mode. They bring you back into the present, into feeling safe. One, because you are connecting with yourself, and some of those activities might also help you connect with others. And also because it's teaching your nervous system that it's safe to just be yourself. You don't always have to be working towards something productive or trying to gain something. And if you feel guilty or uncomfortable when you do that, it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because you're breaking old rules. Those rules were put in place to help you fit in socially, but you don't need those rules anymore because you're not trying to fit in. You're trying to belong. And the only way that we belong or can find belonging, genuine belonging, is by being our authentic self and connecting with others who share similar values. Vulnerability is the path to real, lasting, secure connection. If someone asks me how I've been feeling postpartum and all I say is, I'm great. Everything's great. I love being a mom. That's not a lie. That is true, but it's not the whole truth. Some parts have been really, really rough. There were times when I thought me and my husband wouldn't make it. There were times I thought about quitting my job and burning my career down to the ground because I worried that I wasn't going to be able to do it all. If I skip over the hard parts when someone asks how I am, because I never learned that talking about difficult feelings was useful, then no one will know that I struggle. No one will offer support if they don't know that I struggle. No one will just sit with me and help me feel like it's okay to go through hard things. No one will help me feel like it's okay. That being said, vulnerability doesn't mean telling everyone everything. It matters who you share with. I'd probably be more open with another mom than with someone who doesn't have kids because you want to be able to relate to others. That helps build connection too. But the point is, you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Expressing your real thoughts and feelings is actually how we connect. Connection is built on sharing reality and holding space for one another. Vulnerability also shows up in challenging yourself. If you want to be less obsessed with your physical appearance, but you're too afraid to stop weighing yourself or checking your body, it's usually because you're afraid of how you'll feel if your body were to change. Vulnerability means letting yourself go through the ebbs and flows, ups and downs, mistakes and slip-ups, and helping yourself through it instead of avoiding it altogether. I didn't heal my relationship with food and my body by staying the exact same. I took risks. I ate the foods that I enjoyed without knowing how they'd impact my body. And there were periods where I felt heavier, bloated, ugly, and just like every other phase in life, those phases didn't last. But the important part was that I had to stick with myself through them. I couldn't keep returning to what was hurting me. I had to be vulnerable and stay with myself to get to the other side, a more regulated, balanced side. So if you're avoiding vulnerability, you're also avoiding risk, change, and potential mistakes. And that avoidance is what keeps the obsession alive. Connection is built through small, consistent acts of self-honesty. It doesn't happen all at once. It's not some big breakthrough moment when suddenly you love your body and never think about food again. It's built in really small, boring, everyday moments where you choose honesty over autopilot. This means you notice when you're tired and you let yourself rest instead of pushing through and going for your workout just because it's been part of your routine. It's admitting that you're feeling lonely instead of telling yourself that you just need to get leaner or be better. It's eating more because your body is asking for it, even when your brain is telling you that it's too early to eat or you already had enough. It's saying no when you actually mean no. It's saying yes when you need to open up yourself to an opportunity, or when something genuinely excites you, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. These are examples of being honest with how you truly feel and what you really need instead of what you think you should need. And these moments don't look impressive from the outside. No one's going to be your cheerleader. You have to be your own cheerleader. These tiny little choices are what help you slowly rebuild trust and connection with yourself. Every time you respond to your body's needs instead of overriding them, you send yourself the message, I'm safe. I can be trusted. I can trust myself. I can be honest. I can be me. And when you feel safe from yourself, you stop needing other people's food rules that you learned. You stop needing to feel like you need to control your body. You stop obsessing as a way to cope with feelings. Connection and the benefits of it replace the need for control. Someone sent me a message the other day that highlighted this in the best way. This was a longtime follower. They reached out. They started following me when I was still blogging about health and still probably holding on to some overly strict rules about what was healthy and unhealthy, meaning I was wary of certain ingredients and still a bit on the restrictive side, but I was in the process of unlearning wellness and diet culture. Needless to say, my account has evolved since then from a healthy oatmeal blogging wellness page to a therapist and coach who hopefully helps you look a little bit deeper underneath the surface of food and body thoughts or struggles. Anyways, he said, "This may sound funny, and this is the first time I've ever said this, but your page is inspiring me to just be comfortable. And it just makes it feel okay to eat what you want. I never thought it would be an inspiration to be comfortable and not always on the go and restricting yourself from comfort. But now I realize that." He nailed it. Restricting yourself from comfort. I think many of us were taught that comfort is indulgence, that rest is weak or lazy, that you should always be working hard. And that has made us afraid of comfort. We fear comfort will spiral out of control, that we'll lose ourselves, that we'll swing to the opposite direction and not have any kind of limits or boundaries. But that's all or nothing thinking, which stems from fear. That's how our brains work. When we're afraid, we view things as black or white. We need to find the gray area. And the actual truth, the actual gray area is that comfort is a human need. And when you meet that need regularly and consistently, you're satisfied. And when you feel satisfied, you don't obsess over finding satisfaction, control, or in other words, ways to stop that need from existing. You feel connected to yourself by connecting with your needs. And of course, that doesn't mean that when you give yourself permission to eat cake once, that you're never going to overeat it. Because reconnecting with yourself and your needs is a process that takes time, practice, vulnerability, and self-compassion. But the point is that the goal is not to control yourself. It's to connect with yourself. When you're afraid of a feeling, you don't want to control it and stop it from happening. You want to connect with yourself and understand where it's coming from and what you need to do to soothe or meet that need. When you're obsessing over something, you don't need to stop those thoughts or find other ways to control them. You need to connect with the emotion that's hiding underneath those obsessive thoughts. And that's what I hope you get out of today's episode. So if you were to make connection an intention in 2026, let's talk about how you could actually put that intention into practice. First off, I wouldn't treat it as a goal to achieve. I would treat it as a question to keep coming back to. That's the difference between intentions and goals or resolutions. You're not trying to accomplish something or just cross it off of a list, although I do love crossing things off lists. You're practicing living out a value. In other words, you're letting yourself learn, grow, and experience what it's like to become more connected to yourself and to others over time. It's not just something you achieve one day and then forget about. So grab a pen and paper. I'm going to prompt you with some questions that might help you reflect on areas of your life that may need more intention and attention around reconnecting. Number one, over the last year, where have you been censoring yourself? And I don't mean in some big dramatic way. I mean day to day, like the things that you don't say because you don't want to be too much. The opinions that you filter or sugarcoat, the feelings that you downplay, the moments you tell people that you're fine when you're really not. Pause the episode and take a few minutes to reflect on this. Whatever comes up are likely areas where you could practice voicing your opinions more, expressing your feelings more honesty, and letting your experience be what it actually is, not what you think someone else wants to hear. That's one very real way to connect more deeply with yourself and with others. Next question. Where have you been micromanaging yourself? Some of these might be a bit more obvious than others, like your eating. Are there any lingering food rules that are still getting in the way of you tuning into your natural hunger and fullness cues, your true cravings, or your need for satisfaction? Maybe you're meal planning a little too rigidly. Maybe you're mentally counting how often you should allow yourself to go eat out with people. Just notice where the micromanaging still shows up, if it does, and jot it down. Your body. In which ways are you checking up on yourself? The scale, the mirror, reflective surfaces that you walk by, all of that reinforces the belief that looking at your body helps control it, which is not true. And it just keeps you focused on your body. Are you holding on to clothes that no longer fit? Are you wearing styles that don't feel comfortable anymore or don't match your energy? How about your routines? Is your morning routine actually energizing you, or is it a 12-step process that you feel drained by before you even start your day? I used to think I needed my morning routine to function, but then I noticed that I was exhausted by 2 p.m. And what I actually needed was to change the type of exercise I was doing, to eat more before movement, and to take more breaks throughout the day. And that was during a time when I wasn't even intentionally dieting anymore. So sometimes our restrictions can be sneaky. How about productivity? Are you pushing past your limits and neglecting your well-being in order to impress a boss or serve a company that treats you like you're replaceable? Are you trying to fill every minute with a task while ignoring your need for rest? And how might staying busy all the time be distracting you from your true thoughts and feelings that need to be heard? How about socially? Where do you edit your physical expression so that you fit a version of yourself that you feel is more acceptable? Where do you hold on to tension in your body because letting go of it feels unsafe? Emotionally, where do you stay guarded? Do you avoid opening up altogether? Do you over-explain, overshare, or overreact because there's a lot that normally stays bottled up? None of this is about doing it wrong. I don't want you to reflect on all these things and say, oh, I'm getting this wrong, I'm doing this wrong, I'm doing this and this and this. These are all strategies that you learned to stay safe in a world where it's difficult to connect with people and where we learn that we have to follow all these rules to be liked. Although these questions might bring up some discomfort, it's worth getting curious about what they've cost you and how they might now be acting as barriers to becoming the more secure, confident version of yourself that you're striving to be. The version of you who isn't constantly worried about how your body might change or what other people will think about your appearance. The version of you who no longer believes that losing 5 pounds is going to dramatically change how you feel about yourself, because you know by now that those 5 pounds don't even touch what's going on inside, and inside is what matters. If connection is the intention, the practice might simply be noticing where you have been shrinking, editing, or controlling yourself, and gently asking what it would be like to loosen the reins just a little. Not to change who you are, but actually the opposite, to get more comfortable letting yourself exist openly and freely. And that's how we build self-trust. And that's where real confidence and self-worth come from. And that's where we can actually connect with ourselves in a way to build self-acceptance, the kind that no diet, weight loss drug, or meal plan could ever give you. I hope this episode landed well with you. I hope it grounded you. I hope it made you feel less anxious about having to change yourself this year or have some huge goals to strive for. For me, what is really grounding is that I know that the more connected I am with myself and my feelings and my emotions and my desires and my passions, that's going to spill out into other areas of our lives anyways. In my role as a mom, in my role as a coach and a therapist, in my role as a wife, in my role as a friend. So really, this intention of creating deeper connections is going to help with all of the other areas that you may have otherwise set goals or resolutions in the past. But this time, we're doing it in a much more expansive, grounding way, not something that could be on another checklist that you forget about or you feel like you have failed by the end of February. If you'd like more of this kind of content and you aren't already subscribed, click the link in the show notes to sign up for my newsletter. This is where I offer weekly tidbits of personal growth and self-discovery, and I'd love to connect with you there. All right. Happy New Year. Looking forward to connecting more with you in the new year. See you soon.